What's going on? This is the Started on South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, good to be talking to you on a Thursday. Have you claimed any national titles today?
I mean, I feel like every day we claim the championship of life, right? Every day we claim the championship of that day. So I'm 1-0 today, you know.
Butch Jones claiming champions of life probably got clowned more than what Auburn did.
That's what Tennessee should do next. They should just hang up life.
Just a little throwback.
What's
Tennessee is searching for ways right now in which it could upset its fan base even more after just throwing on additional money to season tickets, just changing apparel companies and instantly making any sort of Nike Tennessee gear look dated. Like, what else could Tennessee do to upset its fans? Let's put champions of life. Will, that's the worst idea you've ever had.
Yep. Though I think we just need to get it more and more ridiculous over time. And my ultimate goal would be getting Bama to take banners down. So I think if we all just claim different title years, then over time, someone's just going to go, stop. This is enough.
By the way, we will have full context of that situation from the man who broke that news, Justin Hokanson. He is coming up in a little bit. We're going to talk about all those claimed national championships, everything related to Hugh Freeze, play calling, Jackson Arnold, whatnot. We dig into all of it with Justin Hokanson, who covers Auburn better than anybody 4-on-3. So we will actually have a real discussion about that.
Connor, would you take a discount to cover the Auburn beat because it's so dang interesting?
No, I wouldn't, Will.
If you're a beat reporter, I mean, think about what people in Arkansas are doing right now. Just looking forward to the season, looking at their guys transfer. Auburn each week is a fun new adventure.
It really is. And I have often thought about what my life would be like if I had taken a beat reporting job, which is what I thought I was gonna do after I left Nebraska, and I thought that was going to be my next step. I did have a few moments in which I wanted to be on a specific SEC beat and thought to myself, what would this be like? But no, I'm good. Like I'm good. Like, let Justin and the other people that deal with this on a daily basis, let them take care of it. They handle the chaos better than I probably would. At this stage in life, I don't have the heart for that stuff. It's so much better from this vantage point of being on the outside looking in, as opposed to dealing with the ebbs and flows of that. I just couldn't take it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we will dig into all that. We have my biggest SEC upsets for 2025. We're going to get on the record with some of those. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping as well to close, kind of give the people a little bit of a rundown of what our schedule is going to look like during the season. A couple of small tweaks that we're going to have, but we will discuss all of that ahead of week 0. But first, before we get to all that, Will, Dabble. I've been talking about Dabble for the last, 6 months now at this point. And if you're into the daily fantasy stuff, I'm going to be doing not a daily fantasy, but I'm doing a college fantasy league with Emory, which is going to be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to that. So
what's the scoring like over there, if you don't mind me asking?
I have no idea.
Good luck.
I was just on Nothing Finer Pod with Emory last week. We do our annual conference championship predictions and whatnot. Had a lot of fun being able to do that. And we will be doing a fantasy league for all things college, which I've done once. I did one in 2020, and I have not done one since. So I'm looking forward to it. But it's going to force me to pay attention to individual stat lines in a way that maybe I haven't in years past. I pay attention to all things Heisman and storylines and all that stuff, but a little bit different when we're talking about, which group of 5 quarterback can be filling up the stat sheet. If you're into that, Dabble is going to be the place to do it for all things college football as well. They have wasted no time making a name for themselves in the daily fantasy space, talking about all things MLB, which is going on right now. We've got, NBA is going to be starting up really, really soon. NFL, a lot of great things that Dabble is going to be doing. Use the promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $10 in bonus cash. No deposit required. Again, that is promo code SDS2 for $10 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Will, let's talk some upsets. Let's get upset. Let's have people get upset talking about upsets. Can we do that?
Perfect.
Okay, so I've been doing our annual Crystal Ball series on SaturdayDownSouth.com. Check it out. Shameless plug. Predicting every game that an SEC team will play in 2025. I always tell people, you can't just throw out a random record prediction if you're not sitting here doing the full breakdown within the conference. I recommend everybody get one of these schedules, one of these little like pocket schedules that the SEC has, where you can literally see every single game. I'm blocking myself. I realize I'm doing that. Go through, just kind of pick it, and you'll see, oh wait, I thought this team would be a lock to go 9-3, and then I realized their schedule is really difficult, and I have them going 7-5. Sometimes until you actually sit down and do an exercise like that, it's tough to come up with predictions, and everything just sounds disrespectful, even though it's not. But by the way, Friday is the last day that we will have the crystal ball with Vandy. We go in alphabetical order. So by the time people are listening to this, if they're listening to this on Friday, all of those will already be out. You can check them out, yell at me, tweet at me, whatever. But I like to do this to get ahead of some upsets. And I've already predicted those upsets in the crystal ball series, and that's why I bring that up. I predict these in the preseason. And sometimes by the time these games roll around in November, I might feel differently because injuries happen or teams are better or worse than we thought they were going to be. If I back off an upset pick and switch it, I don't want credit either way. And if you want to give me crap for predicting something in the preseason, that's fine. Like something that I back out of, that's perfectly fine. In 2021, before the season started, I predicted that A&M was going to beat Bama for the first time in the post-Manziel era. And then the season started. A&M couldn't even beat Mississippi State at home. The week of the Bama game rolls around, and I picked Bama. A&M pulled off the upset. I deserved zero credit for that. I wasn't going to be like, oh, see, look what I said in the preseason. If I'm going to get credit for an upset, I have to double down, okay? I can double down the week of these games when we do all of our picks, all of our preview pods and whatnot. And I did that in 22 when I had the preseason prediction that Tennessee was going to go into Athens and upset Georgia. Game rolls around. Tennessee's number one in the first playoff poll. There was no way I was going to back off that Tennessee pick at that point. We know what happens. Stetson Bennett calls up Tennessee fans. It's like, hey, you guys got my number. You guys all circulated that amongst yourselves. I'm
giving out Tim Tebow's number very different from giving out Stetson's number.
No, it's not. It's the same thing. Tebow did the same thing.
Answer the phone and have a conversation with you and call you trash. That's the thing about Stetson Bennett. Do you think he would love to talk to people who are calling him and to talk trash. Tim Tebow is like, I got to block my number and go to the Lord. Stetson's like, call me up, bro. I'll give you my house phone.
Tebow did the same thing at LSU.
What's up?
He did the same thing when he gets to the end zone.
But I'm saying, like, in reality, I think Stetson loves that. Like, his number getting out there because he's such a big trash talker.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if anybody was able to have a conversation with Stetson Bennett and his flip phone. Remember, that's what was circulating at that point. He's got a real phone. He definitely does. But yeah, so you get what I'm saying. I'm putting these upsets out there into the universe. And if I back off it when it comes around game week, I'm not like cowarding out of it. It's like context changes. This is preseason stuff. And I'd like to be on the record now, and I'll have a chance to be able to double down on this the week of the game. Does that all kind of make sense?
Yes.
All right. So let's start. I have 8 of these, by the way, and they involve 13 of 16 SEC teams. Do you want to take any guess the 3 that are not involved in these 8 upset picks? Georgia's involved in one of them.
Okay. Let's see. Gosh, 3 teams that are not involved. Like, you're talking about the teams being upset or the teams that are upsetting?
There are 13 teams involved. So they can be doing the upsetting or they can be upset. So, yeah, I'll just tell you. It's probably
just go and tell me.
How do you guess it? Oklahoma, Texas, and South Carolina. The only 3 that I do not have. If you are a fan base of those 3 teams, please do not turn off this podcast. Please don't do that. But I have a lot of teams involved in this because history tells us there's a good chance, especially with the way that the SEC played out last year, we're going to have some upsets this year. We're going to have some upsets. So let's start with one that it seems a little bit topical for the main topic of conversation that we'll get to with Justin in a little bit. Mizzou beats Auburn in Auburn. If you don't think that's a big enough upset, after Mizzou beat Auburn last year with a quarterback who spent part of the game in a hospital bed, ask Auburn fans how upset they would be if Mizzou came into Jordan-Hare and won like they should have a few years ago, except for fumbling on the goal line. This is another one of those games where I think possessions could be at a premium, coaching decisions late. That could be the difference. And I think Mizzou is going to be really, really good running the football. We've talked about that a lot. Bo Pribula, who may or may not be the starting quarterback, he's going to end up winning the starting job unless he totally collapses in that opener. I think with Pribula and with Ahmad Hardy, Mizzou with that offensive line should be able to run the football. And at this point of the season, I just don't know what I can bank on with this Auburn offense. I really don't. Like, I think the receivers are going to be awesome. Are they going to be moving on from Jackson Arnold at this point? I don't know. What's kind of overlooked, and I've praised Corey Batoon after being really wrong on him replacing Blake Baker as Mizzou's defensive coordinator. Mizzou was last year 20th in the country in scoring defense, and they're 5th in percentage of returning defensive production. I think this shapes up for another one of those brutal Jordan-Hare losses that Hugh Freeze just can't stomach. So that's where we'll start, with Mizzou beating Auburn at Jordan-Hare.
You know what's funny is you talk about Batoon. It's like, Mizzou definitely was a team last year that there were kind of those flashbacks of them just getting smoked on defense. But it's like, yeah, it goes to the schedule. But that being said, some teams are different versus good teams and bad teams. Auburn is not a good team. So, like, them struggling with A&M or them struggling, with Alabama has no bearing on this, right? It's like, yeah, against the teams that were on their schedule, on average, they kind of smoked them outside of those little outliers. And so I'm kind of with you there. To your point, wouldn't be the most shocking pick. I mean, this is going to sound kind of like condescending or whatever, but it's like, this is like year 4 of like the new and improved Auburn. So I think at this point, you kind of start to believe this is what Auburn is. And I hate to say that I'm rooting for Hugh Freeze just as a general statement, but I am rooting for this team. I think there are a lot of guys that I like on this team, and I think they could actually take that step. We've talked about that a little bit. But just in terms of where these programs are, I mean, think about, when Mizzou joined the SEC, thinking like, okay, well, these teams are going to play in an SEC championship, and then here's where they're going to be in this many years.
Think about where they're at right now. Mizzou's 21-5 the last 2 years, and Auburn's coming off of 4 consecutive losing seasons. And this would still be considered an upset by any sort of preseason conversation. And there are people that have taken a little bit of a closer look at Mizzou, taken a little bit of a closer look at that schedule and gone, don't sleep on Mizzou this year. Don't sleep on Mizzou. And Auburn, obviously the conversations that have been happening throughout fall camp, let's just say they haven't been the ultimate good vibes team in fall camp. And just they've been very, very strange. A
team that likes to talk, kind of like we were just talking about. It's like a different vibe every week. So who's to say that they could have a vibe that week? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. That's not the last mention of Auburn that we're going to have on this list. Spoiler alert. 7. Ole Miss beats LSU in Oxford.
All right.
Yeah. This is a pretty significant upset for my prediction of LSU winning a national championship.
Okay.
And this would be the lone game that I have LSU losing this year. I would expect at the time of this matchup, which is being played in late September, LSU to be a top 4 team. Yes, I have LSU beating Clemson. Didn't include that. 4-point spread. It didn't quite feel like that was necessary. But this game has been awesome the last couple of years. I mean, really, really entertaining, and has gone down to the wire and been kind of like, hey, who's going to have the ball last is going to win this game. But, I think there's still going to be these questions about Lane Kiffin winning a big-time matchup. He's beaten a top 4 team twice in his career, most recently last year against Georgia, okay? And I do think that LSU with this schedule, which features 7 teams that are preseason top 25 in the AP poll, I do think that they'll get got once. And in a matchup like this, I could see this playing out where we don't have a full book yet on Austin Simmons in terms of what to expect. Oh, you got trucks going on outside?
I think another truck has lost its way like a sheep in my neighborhood.
Love it. Like a cement truck just chilling outside.
Just lost. He needs his shepherd. Someone's going to call on the radio and he's going to come on home.
Those brakes, those need examining, man.
Yeah, he needs to come home.
Yikes. So I could see that playing out this year. And it was one of those upsets that I had 2 years ago. And I remember I caught heat for that because LSU was coming in as a preseason top 5 team. And I'm like, I think that's going to be a really difficult matchup for them in Oxford with what I expect to see from Ole Miss. So I have Suntarine Perkins kind of harassing Garrett Nussmeier. A game that Garrett Nussmeier struggled a lot against Pete Golding's defense. It's a very new look Ole Miss defense, entirely new secondary. They're going to be really portal reliant on the back end, but I could see a scenario in which Pete Golding does enough pre-snap to confuse Garrett Nussmeier. And this is a game in which LSU's like, look, just didn't have our best day, and it doesn't necessarily derail them from getting to the college football playoff.
Well, who they bring in for over the top help in the transfer portal there at Ole Miss?
A certain Sage Ryan revenge game, perhaps. What if Sage Ryan seals the game with a pick, Will? What are the words you will say as an LSU fan in those moments?
Word I can't say Brian Kelly. No, just kidding. I think that would be the funniest outcome, actually. But I mean, again, not being a hater here, but with the receivers coming in for LSU, I just don't think Sage Ryan's enough to get them over the hump in this one. And I think we've talked about it with LSU. Like, what is the random thing they're going to be bad at this year? Because they've been randomly bad at something very glaring the last couple of years. It's hard for me to envision a world where they go to Clemson, beat that team, and then come lose to Ole Miss. Like, I could see an embarrassment at Clemson, and then by the time they see Ole Miss, kind of like last year, it was like, okay, like we're rocking and rolling.
Here's the thing about preseason predictions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We all expect this linear progression. What if I told you last year that Ole Miss would host a team like, I don't know, Kentucky, and lose to them? But a few weeks later, they're actually going to be Georgia, the team that's going to go on to win the SEC championship.
That Georgia win, we've talked about it a little bit, but the concept of we've been waiting for Lane to have that win the entire time he's been here for all pretty much his coaching career. The other top 4 win, I believe, it was a while back. It was a Pac-12 win, right?
2011 when his USC team beat Oregon. Oregon, I believe, was 4th in the country at the time. It was a Chip Kelly Oregon team.
Mm-hmm. I remember it was Pac-12, big name, like they were the actual underdog in that game, and like kind of I could see it as what I was going to say here is it's funny that they beat Georgia. And it just didn't matter. Like, that's the craziest thing about it. Is we've been saying, get over the hump. All you need is one of these games. Just beat Bama one time. You can win all the other games. And this year they had the loss they rarely have. Like you said, against Kentucky, they usually kind of smoke those teams. So point being, it's hard for me to imagine. Like, if LSU loses to Ole Miss, they would have, I think, already lost to Clemson, and the season would be in trouble by this point in the season.
See, I'll disagree. Like, I think that the season has so many different ebbs and flows, and it progresses so much differently than we think it will in the beginning of the season, in especially 18 to 22-year-old kids.
Oh yeah.
Let's just say, let's put a pin in this a little bit later, because you hit on something there with having that over the hump victory that people thought it was against Georgia last year for Ole Miss. Some will wonder, hey, get over the hump victory. Maybe not so much with what we'll get to in a little bit. Mm-hmm. Vandy beats Auburn in Nashville. You know I was getting here. You knew I was getting here.
This is the least upset pick of all time. This is just Diego beating Alabama, the state of Alabama again.
Diego, Hugh Freeze, part 4. This will be. I look, all 3 times that Diego Pavia beat Hugh Freeze, he was on the road. That even goes back to when his New Mexico State team was at Liberty back in 22. People forget about that one. They always think, this is going to be the 3rd time. No, this is going to be the 4th time. The 4th time. We saw in the Netflix doc, Diego Pavia takes this one personally. He's not going to worry about being politically correct. He's like, no. He had a chance to recruit me out of the portal, that being Hugh Freeze, and he didn't. That matters, and we've seen that play out. Now, last year, bad offensive performance from Vandy. Diego Pavia wasn't particularly good, wasn't particularly healthy, in my opinion. From an Auburn standpoint, you're like, wait a minute, Diego Pavia didn't do anything in that game last year. Don't sit here and tell me that he and very much concussed Eli Stowers are going to run it back with that type of performance again when they had the leaping penalty on the blocked field goal. Or on the field goal, and it was just a weird offensive game all around. And Diego Pavia was not necessarily the reason that they won that game. It's the Vandy defense that won that game. That Vandy defense is going to be totally overlooked in every preseason conversation. It has been overlooked in every preseason conversation. They returned 73% of that production, which is 10th in FBS. And I understand Clark Lee is stepping back. He's not going to be running the defense in the same way they did last year, and there will be legitimate questions about it. But that defense completely shut down Auburn's offense late in the season last year. At Jordan-Hare Stadium, I think, once again, Diego Pavia makes enough plays in his own building for once against Hugh Freeze to win that game. And that's considered a preseason upset. TBD how it's going to be considered when that one rolls around.
Listen, other shows might be overlooking the Vandy defense. We talked about the Sea Snake, CJ Hurd. We've given them a little bit of love this year. So, yeah, Like Vandy's season was a lot more, to your point, ebbs and flows. Like I think the easy story to grab onto is Diego Pavia beat everybody, but there were games where he wasn't perfect. There were games where different players stepped up, and all that gets lost in the shuffle. Yeah, I think they certainly have enough to beat Auburn too.
Yeah, and that one would sting. It would sting a whole lot, given the timing of it. And what I have projected in the crystal ball, that could be the nail in the coffin for the Hugh Freeze era, which would just feel fitting in a lot of ways. And for the sake of Auburn fans, I hope that isn't what awaits you this year, but it's hard to not predict that at this point.
But at least you get to celebrate a national championship. Anyway.
4. Here's one that you'll like. LSU beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
I'm not falling for this.
Had to talk about this on the game with Ryan Fowler in Tuscaloosa. This is tough for any Bama fan to picture because all the issues that plagued the Alabama offense last year were non-existent in that game in which fake fat Mike the Tiger was there. And
man.
People forget that. They should never forget that. Yeah.
Poor guy.
Has the Tiger had a worse track record in history than that one? I mean, literally a tiger that gets mauled in the jungle after 3 weeks living in some place would have had a better track record than that fake Mike the Tiger.
Yeah, but it's not his fault. That's, you know me, I'm a big cat guy, obviously, and I just felt so bad for him. And speaking of changing predictions, I was starting to bring this up at the top, but I mean, like me going to that game and just be like, we're gonna get smoked today on game day. I had my tickets in hand, and like I just can't. I'm not gonna make this mistake again. I can certainly see Alabama as one of the, especially in Tuscaloosa, and that's kind of like the secret here is that LSU's kind of
been better in Tuscaloosa than, yeah, that's exactly it.
They get too tight. It's like LSU has had 2 coaches that were too tight, Brian Kelly and Les Miles, and one coach that just didn't care in Coach O, and they kind of overbought into those things at home over the years against Alabama.
Brian Kelly's 2-6 against AP top 10 teams on the road since he got to Notre Dame. Not as bad as some others. Dabo Swinney, goose egg. 0 of those wins, by the way.
Call him a fraud then. Anyway.
Right. But that's definitely part of this is, for whatever reason, LSU has been better in Tuscaloosa than it's been at home in this rivalry. And I think it's a very different Alabama offense that might not be able to expose the LSU defense in the way that it did last year when obviously Jalen Norwell was unstoppable.
Yeah, their secret strategy over the last 2 seasons and 2 different head coaches of getting Jalen Norwell to run straight. So they can't do that again. That's actually true, is that they can't just give him the ball and say, go forward.
He got the edge in a lot of different instances, and it got the edge very, very well. But
sideways, diagonally, whichever way they gave him the ball and told him to run, it was cool. I mean, it didn't matter.
I think this is one where Ryan Grubb gets a little bit too pass heavy. I
would welcome that.
I know. Exactly. And it ends up playing into LSU's hand, and it ends up playing into a year 2 Blake Baker defense that doesn't necessarily have these established pass rushers coming into the year, and it's a huge question mark. But by that point in the season, it's a lot more understood of like, oh, dang, these guys know how to get home. Kind of what we were saying year 2 of the Mizzou defense that Blake Baker had. All of a sudden, you look up and they're like, they have a lot of guys in that front 7 that can get home. I think LSU is able to kind of tap into that at a really good time. Garrett Nussmeier looks confident on the road, and Alabama, Alabama's defense getting a lot of credit. That secondary might be the best in college football. It really might be. Like it is absolutely loaded, and I think there's a lot to like with what Kane Womack returns. I don't know that they have those game-wrecking pass rushers, and I'm talking about LSU from that standpoint as well. But I do think that LSU's got a scheme that in year 2, I've already seen that play out in the SEC, where I'm waiting to see how that's going to look year 2 of the Kane Womack defense. Can LT Overton be that guy? Deontay Lawson, not necessarily known for being that guy, but are they going to find those guys in year 2 of this defense? That's what I want to see. I think this is a game in which everybody kind of looks at LSU a little bit differently afterwards and goes, oh boy, yeah, they do have national championship upside. You're not going to have national championship upside unless you can win a game like this in Tuscaloosa against a Bama team that hasn't lost at home to conference competition since Joe Burrow.
How about that?
Because Texas was 23, that doesn't count because Texas wasn't in the LSU yet. It wasn't in the SEC yet. Yeah.
We'll count it as a conference team. You know, we'll go back and look at Iraq Poe's stats, and he's an SEC legend now. But if it's not a conference game, that's different. But yeah, I'm liking this. I like this hopium you're selling me. I'll take a Clemson win, an Ole Miss loss, and a Bama win. Sandwich there.
Real eventful. A lot of takes. Whole lot of takes with LSU. All right, next one. Arkansas beats Texas A&M in Fayetteville.
Okay.
Remember, this one not being played in Jerry World this year. Keep that in mind. And I understand all the history. 12-1 A&M is in this rivalry since joining the SEC. 12-1. All but I think 2 of those games, maybe 2 or 3, were played in Jerry World. This is no longer the case. A&M is 3-12 in true road games the last 4 seasons, Will. 3-12. And now 2 of those were last year. That's good. Mike Elko getting over the hump a little bit. Okay. Maybe a little bit of a different team. But this is still going to be a question of, is A&M going to find those pass rushers? Because with NFL talent last year, they struggled down the stretch and they couldn't necessarily find those guys. A lot of people really high on Cassius Howell. Maybe he's going to end up being that guy. But you saw last year in this game how much it overwhelmed Taylor Green. And those pass rushers, when they were humming early on, this is kind of when they were peaking. And Taylor Green really struggled with that. I think ball security is cleaned up in this game for him. It's not to say it's going to be there all season, but I think that Arkansas comes out just firing in this one. And it's one of those where it's almost like when you're in baseball and a starting pitcher goes 7 innings and he throws like 1 or 2 hits. And then the opposing team, all they need to see is that relief pitcher coming to the game. It doesn't matter that his stuff is nasty. He's a different guy, and he doesn't have that lineup's number. And all of a sudden, it's like they put up a crooked number just because it's a different guy on the board. That's how it feels for Arkansas.
Play. I know I think that was against the Cubs. I think we posted on that game. I know this works.
Cubs have actually been pretty good against Paul Skeens in his career. But that's how it feels for Arkansas, just to finally not have this game. This is the ultimate, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong game for Arkansas when it comes to playing A&M. So I think the Four Loko quarterback himself, Taylor Green, has himself maybe the best game of his career. And this ends up being, with the way the schedule plays out, because I have A&M starting 3-0 in SEC play, losing that game to Notre Dame in South Bend. But A&M ends up being a top 10 team coming into this game. So Arkansas beats a top 10 team at home in consecutive years.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? When you kind of look at these two teams, because while they do seem, geographically similar and all these different things, I remember last year we talked about the matchup of kind of like the great pass rushers in the SEC, and each team had one, and it was like who kind of would make the most difference. And there was such a succinct ending to this game last year with kind of the strip sack fumble situation. It was like, all right, have a great day, everyone, head for the exits. This has been such a kind of fun back and forth, right? Like
back and forth. Don't call it back and forth.
Not back and forth. I mean, what? I started to stop myself, but there have been back and forth games, is what I was going to say. Like they've been games that have been very hard to turn off. And you're right. Like it's kind of been one-sided. And part of that's kind of the talent floor, right? And like A&M goes to show, if you kind of mismanage a high level of talent, it's still above, it can still get you above not really having that talent, which is where Arkansas has been, even though Arkansas has had some of these stars. Now, that being said, Arkansas for this season is going to be an agent of chaos. I certainly see. I feel like Arkansas could be involved. Do you have them again in this list?
This is the last time that I have them on this list, and I don't have them necessarily pulling off any more stunning upsets. How many truly stunning upsets have they been a part of outside of that Tennessee game?
Not a ton. They've been in a lot of games, but not closed them out, or like they've kind of, I'm not going to say they collapsed, because you don't really collapse in an upset, like you play well.
At LSU in 23, they were, the Luke Has game, like they were part of that early on, but they end up coming back against the Robert Patrick Petrino Missouri State team a couple years ago. So like they were almost part of that one, but they haven't necessarily been part of these monumental upsets. And that's kind of part of the problem and why there's at least a feeling of maximized ceiling under Sam Pittman. That's definitely where some of the angst stems from, is the fact that those moments haven't been as plentiful as they'd hoped for. And I think if you have another one of these types of games against A&M, that obviously changes the conversation, at least for a week. With the schedule that difficult, it probably doesn't change it for the entire season. But that context is certainly a part of why Arkansas fans, many of which are frustrated with Sam Pittman.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of just like alluding to that, it's like this team kind of has two options. Either they are just these like upset kings and they're able to pull off, 2, 3, 4 games like this, or it's kind of a factory of sadness over there because they're going to be underdogs in like every SEC game almost. If you look up and down the schedule, it's hard to find wins. They host Notre Dame, which would be another game that they could see as an upset. And so point being, like, I would hope that they are still, locked in, believing. Pittman's such an easy guy to believe in, but it's one of those where they're going to need to be in the boat. Like, they're going to need to week in, week out, be prepared to upset lots of teams. So I would argue they could certainly win this game, and I think they're going to need to win a couple of these games to stay together as a team in this age of college football.
I have Arkansas going 5-7, and ultimately moving on from Sam Pittman. Hopefully, for the sake of running the show, Sam Pittman. Hopefully, it's a little bit of a better exit than Brett Bielema getting fired on the field after losing to Mizzou. It's tough to sit there and project a different conversation with Arkansas with all the turnover. That's the thing that could hold them back. But beating A&M would certainly be one of those Saturdays that they would appreciate because of the history.
And real quick, I mean, not to go too deep on this, but one more and he could keep his job. They could go 6-6 and beat LSU, Texas, Notre Dame with like one of those wins where it's like your schedule is horrible, but like you have 2 years of this where you've like upset a top ranked team. Like that's the thing. They need a couple. That's all I was saying. So yeah, I think we're about a game or two off, but I'm rooting for them. Let's put it that way.
Don't know if 6-6 would be enough. Don't know that would be enough. We'll see. Crazier things have happened. This would be a crazier thing that's happened. Kentucky beats Tennessee in Lexington. I've already heard about this from Tennessee fans a little bit. And fully aware of the history.
Sorry, this has been a fun game. Maybe not, again, back and forth within the context of games, freaky games they've had, but that would be so funny this year.
Tennessee fans would disagree with you. Not so funny from their standpoint, especially when Josh Heupel has owned Mark Stoops.
Yep,
won all 4 games. I think these 2 games in Lexington that he's won though have been down to the wire, interesting, anybody can win type of games. And it speaks to Josh Heupel's struggles on the road that he's 8-10 in true road games. As great as Josh Heupel has been at Tennessee, that is the biggest thing that is facing
the SEC or like
no true overall. Road games. True road games overall. He is 8-10 in true road games.
Okay. And
so while I do not think this is going to be a particularly inspired season for Kentucky, this is their only SEC game that I have them winning. I do think that there is the possibility that coming off of the Bama game, which Tennessee would be, that they could come out a bit flat against the Kentucky team that they have obviously owned. And Kentucky, while I don't have much confidence in the offense this year, I'm a little bit intrigued with their running back combination of Dante Dowdle coming over from Nebraska, who's just kind of a little bit Josh McCray-like with what he did in the Big Ten, kind of your short yardage type guy. And then New Mexico State transfer Seth McGowan's going to get a lot of run there. I think that there is just a sense that Kentucky, after what it did against Ole Miss last year, can pull off an upset like this. And it would be a very significant upset. It absolutely would be. So I don't mean to diminish this. Kentucky has lost 8 consecutive games against power conference teams at home. Okay. They have not beat a power conference team at home since Ray Davis ran all over Florida. Yeah. September of 23 was the last time they beat a power conference team at home. Bad. Basura. This finally ends that.
Yeah, this is actually, like I said, it would just be a super funny outcome. Went back and looked at their history. There's kind of only been one of those games that was super one-sided. It was against a very good Tennessee team in 2022 where they ranked number 3.
God, was that one-sided.
I mean, was that one-sided. Kentucky that year.
Oh my God. Danico Slaughter had a play in that game that was that told the story, just defined that night where Will Levis was just totally dismantled. I think there were Tennessee fans after he got drafted by the Titans that thought about that game specifically and made up their minds right then and there. This ain't working. This ain't gonna work.
Not this guy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I point being, this has just been kind of a, like I said, same deal, like one-sided but fun to watch for 3 of those 4 years. And so it would be so funny back against the wall. Mark Stoops is the king of what do we do with you? Like, what do we do? What are you good? Are you bad? Like, what are you do? This would be such a win like that where it's like, okay, well, you beat Tennessee, which you haven't been able to do, which is awesome. But also, is this Tennessee team any good? Like it's also, I don't know. I think that would be so perfect. I'm actually rooting for this now.
I really want to see what Tennessee's floor looks like within a given game of how much this year do they look like a team that plays with their food. Where is their sort of like flip it into high gear offensive moment? What does that look like? Is that a big play in the passing game with receivers that we're talking about having massive questions? Is a guy like Peyton Lewis just going to emerge in this backfield, or Deshaun Bishop? I know we've talked about him is being like this next guy, but like Star Thomas, the Duke transfer as well. What's it going to look like for this team when they need a big time play and they figure things out? And what's it going to look like when it looks very similar to their first halves last year when they're scuffling and they can't get anything going? What is the overall sense in those trying times, or at those times when they're rolling? Like how does this team feel, and what do they ultimately feel like they need to turn to is a question I don't think even Tennessee fans know at this point. And that's very unique because we expect great things out of the defense just because Tim Banks has earned that type of trust, and especially with what their defensive front should look like. But yeah, that's going to be a very prevalent topic of conversation, especially in a game like this.
You know what? I love that you phrased that way. So I'm going to park here for a second. Here's how I describe Josh Heupel. I think his floor has been surprisingly high within the context of a season, but within the context of a singular game,
yes,
he has had floors that are so low that they are some of the worst in the SEC, where you are like, this offense is so fundamentally broken.
And ceilings that are so high, though. And ceilings where it looks like they're playing against air. And there are those moments. We used to always bring up the Josh Heupel opening drive.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter who's out there. I mean, they had the 75-yard run. What was it? Jalen Wright, the 75-yard run to start off the game against Georgia a couple years ago.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, my God. I mean, Tennessee's just this was inevitable. And it's no longer like that. But yeah, the variance within a game, it just feels so extreme.
I think that's the best way I could describe it. It's like I've been struggling. I'm just so fascinated by Tennessee. I think that's the way I would describe it, is like because of their defense over the course of a season, they have bounced back very well after they've just looked terrible for a game or a drive or something. But if you look terrible for a drive or two in the SEC, even against a team like Kentucky, if you just cough up the ball at your 20 twice, it's over. So yeah, I think that's kind of going to be what this season is about, is how can they ride the ebbs and flows without, the quarterback they planned on having coming off of, what I would say is like maybe not a great season, but a great modern season for Tennessee for sure.
And one more other thing here, just so that Tennessee fans please don't give us a 1-star review. We've said very nice things about the Vols over the years. Okay. Mm-hmm. One game a year. We'll even get rid of year one, because year one, that's like what he inherited from Jeremy Pruitt. We won't even go there and use that as an example to prove this point. Year 2 in 22, they have the road game at South Carolina, a game that nobody would have expected coming into the season, or certainly coming into that week, that would be the type of dud that they would lay. 23, they go on the road at Mizzou. They get smacked in a game that nobody coming into that would say that's how that's going to play out. Nobody coming into the season would have said that's how it's going to play out. 24, what happens last year? They go on the road. They lose that game to Arkansas, in a game that nobody would have said, oh yeah, Tennessee's going to get over the hump against. And this is why I say these things aren't linear. Nobody would have said, oh yeah, Tennessee's going to win that monumental game at Oklahoma, and then, oh, by the way, they're going to actually, the next game that they're going to play, they're going to lose at Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Like that's what I'm trying to get ahead of with some of these things, and why I think it's worth bringing up. As much as Josh Heupel's road record gets discussed, they have had one of those dud games every year. This could be their dud game.
I remember getting on a plane. I think it was in 23. It was the year after that, the South Carolina game, and the Tennessee guy was like talking to me and everything. He's like, "We think about the Vols." And I was talking about some of the ceiling stuff without calling it that, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, what happened in that game?" And he was like fully convinced that Connor Stallions had given them the game plan. Like that, he was like,
that's
dude,
still a working theory. Will.
Yeah, like,
it really is.
They said it to him. It was so clear. It was so obvious. They knew the whole playbook. It's like, I think this just kind of happens a couple times, you guys. I don't know, but again, on the whole of the season, like they're pretty like consistently good because of the defense. But I could definitely see a game like this. It'd be very funny.
Let's get to something that I let's just say from the people in my life would upset them very, very much. Florida beats Georgia in Jacksonville. That's number 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Cocktail party. hasn't gone the way of the home Gators. Yeah, I'm calling them the home Gators. Since 2020. Florida, I think, has something unique in this matchup that it has not had in years past. Maybe it had it a bit last year, but it will have it in a more evident way this year. And that is an ability to line up with Georgia in the trenches. It's a huge, huge area of concern late in the Dan Mullen era. And I think this year with this Florida team, which has 2 guys on the offensive line, 2 guys on the defensive line that are being projected as first-round picks, I think Florida can actually hang tough in that battle. Doesn't mean that they're going to win that battle and dominate that battle, but they can at least hang tough. And when you add in the DJ Lagway factor, if he is healthy, which he was for part of the game last year, it makes a difference. It does. And it's not that Florida ends up being the better team, like what ends up, I guess that played out in 2020, where it was this crowning achievement for Florida in that season and their path to get to the SEC championship. They knew it was going to have to run through Georgia. But I do think that Georgia, with that schedule, will get got once. The days of assuming 12-0 are inevitable, I don't think is realistic. I don't. And I think it's one of those games where Florida comes out and it's just 17-0 before Georgia even knows what's going on. And that's not to say that Georgia is going to lack consistency in the same way that it did last year. And that's what we've talked about, is we don't think this team will be as yo-yo as last year's felt in some of those games. But I think that Florida is able to come out just with the right mindset in this one, and it puts Georgia in a spot that it's not used to being in. And I think that finally for Billy Napier, who, by the way, has not had a win away from the swamp against a power conference team that went to a bowl game, has not done that at Florida. Let me repeat that real quick.
Oh, overall, I was waiting for a year. Okay, go ahead.
At Florida,
yeah,
he's entering year 4. He has not had a win away from the swamp against a power conference bowl team. Mm-hmm. The only win he's had against a bowl team away from the swamp was the bowl game last year against Tulane. So that's it. That's why I said power conference team here. That would obviously be Billy Napier's biggest win to date, and it would be a huge piece of him keeping his job this year and a big part of the, oh my God, DJ Lagway is special conversation.
Yeah. You know what's so interesting? I was just thinking about this when Billy came over, right? He kind of had this offense, or my perception of it, right? Which is that, okay, he was at the University of Louisiana, trademark registered, and he basically had this quarterback and this offense that was basically built to fall forward, right? In terms of they would get 4 or 5 yards at a time. It was kind of this ground and pound, like you just never stopped them. It was like, just inching, crawling, 5 yards, 4 yards, no negative plays, smart decisions, high IQ, take care of the football. And then he selected these 2 quarterbacks that were just the complete opposite of that. Anthony Richardson, and I'm not comparing them in levels, but just style of play, right? So, because I like Lagway a lot, I'm not lumping them together in that way. But let me just take a pause here. Boy, howdy, were the college guys right about Anthony Richardson. I feel like I want to just
hold on. He didn't select Anthony Richardson.
No, I know. But in terms of he played him. You know what I'm saying? He didn't go get another guy. He started with him, and he went with a style of play, I guess, to fit him. He just didn't fit his style of play. You know what I'm saying? The coach or the team that was on the field did not fit kind of what he was supposed to do. And I think that's why he brought in Graham Mertz, who's a lot more of a protect the ball, check down guy. Well, the problem is that Mertz was not a protect the ball guy. Okay. And so let me take
I think he was. Go back and look at the turnover numbers. His high percentage throws, he was as good as there was in the sport,
right?
In the year that he's healthy. Now, last year, obviously, that's a different story with a very limited sample size. I would say he was very good at protecting the football during his time at Florida, which was honestly more of an issue at Wisconsin than it was at Florida. If you look at his turnover worthy plays, it was a little bit of a different story there. So not to just totally disagree with you, but I think Graham Mertz was a lot more of the Billy Napier style quarterback than what Anthony Richardson was. And if you have Anthony Richardson on your roster, you'd be foolish to go away from that at that point, given what we had seen from him with Dan Mullen in 21.
Right. Let me restart this point because I was going somewhere with this, right? So he takes over. It is a fall forward offense. He ends up with these 2 quarterbacks. Doesn't really matter if he's selected them or not in terms of what we saw on the field. He ends up with these 2 quarterbacks that are these rocket arm quarterbacks who do not play with high completion percentage. Fair?
That is DJ Lagway and Anthony Richardson.
Yes. Okay.
Correct.
Very different players. I'm just saying that their styles of play, right? And DJ Lagway, we talked about, didn't have the mobility, could add it, whatever. But I am still waiting to see that Florida team. That's where I'm going with this. Is that, and let me just quickly now take another aside about Graham Mertz. The thing that was a little bit shocking to me about Graham Mertz was that he was creating turnovers on kind of more shallow throws. Like there are a bunch of just weird turnovers he had where like the ball would hit a guy and it was like he wasn't taking risks on the level to justify his like slightly elevated turnover percentage. He wasn't like a Chad Pennington Jets guy, like which I thought he would be. He was not consistently moving the ball 5-6 yards down the field. There were a little bit more shots, there were a little bit more turnovers. So I think he still has not been able to manufacture that offense. And we feel so bad for DJ Lagway being injured because DJ Lagway, like we talked about, adding his legs, being in the offense, could be a high percentage throw guy who can also stretch the field, therefore taking out the level of risk he has to take to hit guys. Because if you don't know the offense, you got a rocket arm, you're going to throw it, right? And so point being, this is where I'm going around to. You're talking about trench play, right? I still think we have not seen a quote unquote Billy Napier team at Florida, because if you look at, again, not his players year one, but their lines were good. You know what I'm saying? The offensive line year one in Florida was really good. Then it kind of got shelled out a little bit and it was, oh, nobody's there, like whatever. But these lines
should be good,
really good. And so this image we have, that's all I'm trying to paint here, is this image we have of the Florida Gators where they're kind of top heavy and they don't do fundamentals well and the lines aren't good. It's like, that's not Billy Napier at all. He was brought in to build a very almost conservative, like selectively aggressive with play calling, but not a team that took care of the football and made good risks. And it hasn't been that just because of a bunch of stuff he really couldn't control. But I do think that they're building towards something, if he can stay there, where they can compete on the trenches with Georgia, as weird as that sounds, because they certainly hung in that game last year.
And I think it's the combination of those two things. To beat a team like Georgia, which that's what we're talking about here, is like being able to upset a team like Georgia. You're not just going to punch them in the mouth straight up the middle, ground game, at least in a traditional sense against a Kirby Smart defense. You're not supposed to be able to do that en route to a victory. Like Georgia last year losing to a physical Georgia Tech team during regulation and then being able to win that game in overtime, because that's really what it felt like. That was surprising. Like, wait, Brent Key's doing what to Georgia? And you still
Brent Key is doing what? Loose. He's always just doing what? I love him.
Yeah, but like you need the combination of it.
Yeah.
You need the combination of a guy that's going to be willing to take those risks. You need those moments in which you make a tight window throw and you're able to hit on those chunk plays. That's what we've always talked about. That's what we used to talk about with beating Saban. It's like you're not just going to line up and just expect to beat him in that way. And Florida, in the right day, has those things capable in its arsenal in a way that it has not had during the Napier era. And I think that makes the difference in a game like this.
And yeah, just to put a bow on that, exactly what you're saying. Like if this were to happen, it wouldn't feel that lucky. It would feel in phase. It would feel like they were taking good risks and hitting on them, versus like last year, it was just very like, okay, Lagway's in and somebody down there somewhere. Like I feel like they're getting to a point where the trench play can kind of back that up.
Agreed. All right, let's end with some chaos, Will. Number one, biggest SEC upset that I have this year. Lord have mercy, Ole Miss fans, if this plays out.
Oh, boy.
Mississippi State beats Ole Miss in Starkville in the Egg Bowl. And here's the context of why this is the biggest upset. Because you could say, Connor, it's the Egg Bowl. Chaos is not an upset. We expect chaos. We expect fake dog piece celebrations. We expect brawls. We expect backup quarterbacks throwing haymakers. Like this is the Egg Bowl. Drag my Yankee you-know-what out of here. A certain Joe Moorhead. This is chaos. There is no such thing as upset. There's just people getting upset in the Egg Bowl. Here's why. Mississippi State, you might have heard, has not won an SEC game under Jeff Lebby just yet. At this point in the season, regular season finale, they still have not won an SEC game under Jeff Lebby. Lane Kiffin, at this point of the season, 9-2, knocking on the door of the college football playoff. A post-hype season is in the works. Ole Miss has done the things that people said it couldn't do after losing the amount of talent that it lost to the NFL draft this past year. And everybody's patting Ole Miss on the back and going, oh my God, Lane Kiffin is 60 minutes away from the college football playoff. All he has to do is beat an SEC team that has not won a conference game in 2 years. And he can't do it. And he goes on the road And he has this game against Mississippi State with an offense that's actually coming into form more than people realize. Devon Booth, South Alabama transfer Fluff Bothwell, who's just an all-name team legend of the 21st century.
I can't handle talking about that name regularly. I hope Mississippi State turns it around because I will be the biggest Fluff Bothwell guy.
You know, it's actually it's a great name, but it's kind of a bad name for his skill set. A running back named Fluff, who last year, we always love bringing up yards after first contact, had more yards after first contact of any FBS running back with at least 100 carries, not named Ashton Genty. That's the type of guy. That guy is not named Fluff. That guy is named Boom.
Airbag.
Yeah. Anyway, Fluff and Devon, they have themselves a game. And this is a Mississippi State Super Bowl. That's how this feels. And there were moments last year in the Egg Bowl in this game in Oxford in which you're kind of like, dang, Mississippi State's hanging around a little bit. And Jeff Lebby against his former boss, the former Ole Miss offensive coordinator, a how do you like me now of epic proportions to keep Ole Miss out of the college football playoff. Devastation for Ole Miss, elation in Starkville.
Yeah, and you know what? Just going back to that point, I do see why this is his nickname. It's because he's 230 pounds as a sophomore. He's got a little bit of fluff to him. But if you were to pick Mississippi State's first SEC win, like under Levy, what do you think it would be? Because
I just said this is it.
This is it.
That's why you missed the whole preamble.
I didn't miss the whole preamble. I was just like, so you think they're going to get it all the way to this point? And he's not going to get fired?
No, because he's got an athletic director that is fully on board with him. Trust me. They are very, very much aligned. And there's an understanding with the roster turnover that he inherited that this was not going to be 2 years. This was probably not even going to be 3 years. Now, if the only situation that could develop, if all of a sudden Zach Selman, hey, Oklahoma, they're calling you up, your alma mater, we want you to replace Joe Castiglione. We're going to make this hire in November. It's kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Mississippi State's got a new athletic director. And it's somebody that's not aligned with Jeff Lebby. That changes the conversation. And if he's all of a sudden got a new boss, then yeah, I would be very much worried for his future if they're still looking for their first SEC win in the regular season finale in the Egg Bowl. But I think that happens. And I think that happens in a game like this. And Mississippi State doesn't earn the right to be the ultimate good vibes team going into the offseason because you need to at least go to a bowl game for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all I was saying with that is like, there's a couple of more wins on here I could see. That was kind of where I was getting there is like, okay.
Where would you go?
I mean, they could beat Arkansas. Like that's kind of like where I was going. Is like, okay, they could beat Arkansas. An upset against Mizzou would be kind of funny. Like, I think that this being their first SEC win would even be more of an upset because I feel like we need to see something in one of those two games at least. And there were points last year kind of spread out throughout the year that they looked okay. But yeah, I think that again, ebbs and flows. I get it, but I think that if they're good enough to beat an Ole Miss team that you talked about, had beaten LSU, had kind of shocked people in a good way. We're a little bit higher on them than most people. I think that you need to see a little bit of progress out of Mississippi State because they can't just trot out the same thing they did last year, obviously. So yeah, it's definitely a crazy game. We've seen a ton of stuff happen, but just to get to that late in the season, without seeing the boys bring one home, I think would be rough. But yeah, point being, I could see them being a little bit better than this, and that one being a little bit less shocking, but still the shocker of the year, just because, man, we've seen it before. Like, as far as the Egg Bowl, we've seen, like, teams go into here with such a clear future. We've seen bad injuries in this game, so I think we've talked about it, so I don't think it's underrated, but what a great rivalry in the SEC.
It is. It truly is. And if this plays out, the conversations about Lane Kiffin as a choker, oh, boy. Man, they would last a long time. Mississippi State's got to find a pass rush. They had 5 sacks in 8 SEC games last year. Like in the regular season, I think they finished with 10. I'm pretty sure Oregon State was the only FBS team that finished with fewer sacks last year. It was a year zero defense. But by this point of the season, Jeff Lebby can get his team still bought into the idea of just ending Ole Miss's happiness. Like, sometimes that is the greatest motivator. It's not whether or not you're going to get up for an 11 o'clock game, in late October when you're already out of it. It's, are you going to be able to get up for a game like this? And if he can find a way to do that, what an epic chapter in this rivalry it would be. And I say this being all aboard the Austin Simmons hype train. I think Austin Simmons has an all SEC season this year. I'm fully on board with that. I'm going to try and get him in our fantasy draft that we're doing, that I mentioned earlier. But the Egg Bowl, I think we're due for a game like that. It's been a little bit too quiet with the Egg Bowl in recent memory. I think we're due for a moment like this in this rivalry.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, so that's it. 8 big upsets. Sure, we'll have more, but those are the places that I started. Felt like, you know what? It's enough to say these games are actually upsets in the preseason. I don't know what these spreads are going to end up looking like. And obviously, we're still going to be making our picks every single week. And if we want to double down, we can double down. Maybe we won't. We'll see how this plays out. Anything else that that came to mind as you were looking at these games? You're like, circle that one. You want to get on board with any sort? You want to get on board with an Iron Bowl upset? Anything like that before we kick to Justin?
Oh man, I mean, like that's the thing. Like I said, there's these two kind of like Four Loko-ish teams with Arkansas and Mississippi State, where I feel like because they will be underdogs in like every game, I could see both of them shocking somebody kind of in the early year, and even still, getting to the end of the year and us being like, this team is not any good. But I think with such a like large conference, fundamentally, the teams that are at the bottom, they're still getting, some 4-star talent and stuff. So I think that's the thing, is that it's going to be pretty hard for some of these teams to be, I hate to say back-to-back sorry, but something's got to give. I mean, even like we said, Arkansas beat Tennessee last year. Like either you are a complete, like I said, sadness factory, or we're going to start to see more of these upsets pile up. And that's kind of the good side, devil's advocates here. That's the good side of new college football, is that with these losses, don't matter. The colleges are getting, or the conferences are getting bigger. I think there will be more week-to-week upsets in a given year than we've seen ever going forward.
I don't know if Vegas tracks that specifically, because is a 2-point spread, is that truly considered an upset? And then there's always the debate about rankings versus spread. If a team is ranked higher but is actually the underdog, then what's actually considered an upset? So it'd be a tough thing probably to track, but something we'll be talking about. And if it feels like we can't predict this on a weekly basis and all of our picks are just always wrong, then we'll just chalk it up to chaos and the new wave of college football with talent being dispersed differently. All right, Let's kick it to Justin. Auburn has had a very heavy month of August, very news heavy month of August, we can call it that, between retiring Cam Newton's number, the claimed national titles, the free quarterback quote from Hugh Freeze, everything related to Jackson Arnold, and just a whole lot more. So I thought it'd be the right time to dig into some of those storylines. So here is Justin Hokanson. Now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Justin Hokanson. Justin, you've been breaking a ton of news this week, but we've got to start with the news that made national headlines. Auburn won 4 national titles this week. Why did Auburn claim these national titles, and why did they do it right now?
It was a big week. Yeah, that took off. I mean, I guess I knew it was going to be a big story, but man, I see like today, it was like 2 days later, I saw that it was talked about on First Take and ESPN, like everywhere. I'm like, man, this kind of took off even more than I thought. Well, first of all, I'll say I've seen a few people say Auburn announced this, or like, why did Auburn release this? They actually didn't. They didn't release a statement. They didn't release a video. I just knew that the signage was going to start going up inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. And so I reported it, I reached out, got a quote from John Cohen, just a simple quote on why they did what they did, and then reported it. But it wasn't like a big thing rollout that they planned necessarily. They pretty much were just going to put the signage up. It's good to go. And then try to honor some of those teams, I think, this fall a little bit, or, maybe 2004 or something like that. So it wasn't like a big orchestrated thing from them necessarily, like they wanted to call all kinds of attention to it. They really just were like, this has been something, if you haven't been involved in the Auburn universe, this has been a decade-long or more conversation in Auburn. They put together a committee over 10 years ago when Jay Jacobs was the athletic director to look at some of these seasons and teams, saying, hey, these teams won their conference. They went undefeated. Somebody called them a national champion. Like, are these national championship worthy teams? Should we count these? And at the time, they ended up not doing it. A lot of it was there was some booster pressure of people internally that were just like, no, it would be a bad look. Let's just stick to the AP. But you got Alabama right there across the state for decades has done it. So that was always lingering, I think. With Auburn, it's like, but, it's already been done. Why are we acting like we're above it? Like in that way, if you have a legit an independent selector that crowns you a national champion and your season was worthy and you go, we won the conference and you went undefeated and you beat teams 225-10. Like, anyway, so I think it was just John Cohen taking an issue that was kind of a home run issue for Auburn fans and just saying, like, there's some legitimacy here. Let's do it. I mean, there's 3 or 4 more undefeated seasons that Auburn has that they don't claim anything for. So it's not like they claimed everything. So I think it was an easy issue for John Cohen to like get a win. Same thing with like retiring Cam's jersey. No brainer.
It's interesting though, because A&M is a team that we, as a program that we clown for it because they released it basically the same way. They did signage. Bama decides on a random day during a time in which they needed a boost. Let's claim these national championships. We clown everybody that does this, UCF included. So it's not necessarily just Auburn that, you see the reaction. Obviously Auburn's going to get clowned for this. And it's like, wow, they're doing this on the heels of 4 consecutive losing seasons for the first time since the Harry Truman administration. Of course, they're going to get clowned for it. The timing of it is interesting, but your context is important. You reported this. I would have been fascinated if this had just played out. And if all of a sudden someone had just discovered the science, that probably would have been worse than you just reporting this. We would have clowned them more for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Auburn right now is an easy punching bag. Hugh Freeze has, plenty of critics. And so they're just they're an easy school for rival fans and everybody to poke at and make fun of. And so that adds to it a little bit. If Auburn was coming off a 10-win season, they'd probably still get clowned, but it'd be a little different maybe. But they're just a punching bag right now. They're easy to poke at, and Hugh Freeze is a polarizing figure, and so it's easy to punch at. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see if nothing got reported, or if we didn't know, would we have just seen the signage like going up and going, hey, well, what are you guys doing? Maybe. I think, like I said, I think they're going to try to honor the teams or something during the season. So like it would have come out eventually, but yeah, it wasn't like, I think they knew, let's honor them, let's recognize them, let's put up signage. But let's not like release video. Like let's not, just blow it up in the way like they did Cam, or in the way they did the on-field sponsored thing yesterday or whatever. So I don't know, but you're right. Everybody gets clowned for it. My view on it is, you should, like I saw a bunch of people in the replies and the quote tweets, and they were like, well, we should just claim da-da-da. I'm like, well, you should then go do it. If it's legitimate, that's my argument. Auburn didn't take any national titles from anybody. Nobody got their national title taken away. Auburn just simply had teams that they thought were worthy, and they wanted to claim those. Nobody got one taken away. So I don't know. I'm kind of man, you go back in 90s and 80s and everything beyond, there was no uniformity. So like if you got a season where, Iowa in 1958, for instance, that's one that Auburn claimed. Iowa went 8-1-1. Well, that's worse than Auburn's 9-0, and it's definitely worse than 11-0 by LSU. They claim a national title because the football writers named them national champions. And you're like, but you clearly weren't. You had a loss. And so I don't know. There was just such non-uniformity back then that if you have an independent selector that named you a national champion and you went undefeated and you won your conference, I say claim it. Like, I don't know. I think that's a good argument for any school. I don't know. I don't like, do you not think that way? Do you think like you shouldn't? It was such confusion back then, and just like kind of do whatever you want, that like, I'm okay with claiming that stuff, man. It was the Wild Wild West.
It's always going to feel weird claiming it so far after the fact. That's probably the biggest thing, is that if it's claimed 2 years after, okay, that's a different story. But when it's claimed in 2025, you're like, all right, one of these happened 75 years ago. One of these happened more than 100 years ago. Like, why are you doing this? Essentially, people will see right through this, and they're going to interpret what they want with that. I get that. I get it from that standpoint of like, hey, look, this was actually better than this other claimed national champion. So it makes a lot of sense. Okay, another thing that you've been dealing with a lot. Over under 2 quarterbacks that Auburn plays against Baylor in the opener.
Jackson Arnold's the man.
So
I would say, you said over under 2.
Yeah.
I think under. I think it'll be all Jackson Arnold. That quote was again, perfect example of Auburn and Hugh Freeze being a punching bag. He was asked, could you play 3? And he goes, yeah, we could. I mean, that like what? I mean, that's a perfectly legitimate answer. And what was lost is earlier in the day we talked to Hugh Freeze, and he talked about Ashton Daniels bringing a little bit different, something different to the table, and Deuce Knight having some elements to their game that maybe in a situation could be utilized, but Jackson Arnold can run too. Jackson Arnold's mobile too. So I don't necessarily think there's anything Ashton or Deuce bring to the table that that Jackson can't do. So that quote kind of got blown out of proportion big time. Jackson Arnold, it's his show until it's not. He'll be the guy. I don't think another quarterback's getting in the game against Baylor. If it did, maybe it's Ashton. I mean, he's a bigger quarterback. Maybe there's some package on 3rd and 1 that you just snap it to him and you go heavy, and he is a bigger guy than Jackson. He's a pretty good size guy. Maybe there's something like that where you just pound ahead and you get the yard and Jackson comes back in and Jackson doesn't take a big hit in that situation. Maybe something like that, but it's Jackson Arnold's show till it's not.
How different is the feeling internally versus externally with Jackson Arnold right now?
You mean fan expectation versus program internal expectation or what?
I think, yeah, program internal expectation versus what people outside who aren't day-to-day there, like me compared to you, and people that have watched this situation, that have seen some of the clips that have come out, seen Hugh Freeze's frustration, like, this isn't going to work. Like, how different is that feeling that Auburn has right now with their quarterback situation going into this year?
I think the expectations are somewhat aligned. I mean, I think fans are excited about his potential, but understands that he had a rough year last year, and he had some turnovers, and he's got to get his confidence back, and he's got to go prove it. And I think that's similar to in the program. Like, I don't think in the program they think something different than, like, in the program they're not like, he has been struggled. Like, everybody has these expectations, but boy, I don't think so. Like, I think they've seen some similar things. He's shown signs. He hasn't turned the ball over in scrimmages and practices. He's taken care of the football. And I think they see the same thing. The potential's there. The ceiling's there. Got to get his confidence back. Got to go prove it. And so I think the expectations are kind of aligned internally and externally. I don't know that anybody outside the Auburn world, I think everybody sort of has the same vibe on him, which is they see the talent, but they see the struggles last year. And they saw the struggles in Auburn's offense. And so they go, okay, the talent's there, but there's a lot of uncertainty there for various reasons, whether it was with Jackson or whether it's with Hugh Freeze and his offense. And so let's just see how this thing works out. The one thing, probably the most intriguing thing I'm interested to see, obviously I want to see how Jackson operates and then throwing the football and accuracy and all that. But he can run. I mean, his running ability is real, and it's not present at all during fall camp. The whistle's blown. You're not hitting the quarterback. So when we hear reports about the defense winning scrimmages and practices, and I talk to people, like, that's true. And sometimes there's been frustration on the offensive end in practices that they're not doing enough. But then you take into account that Jackson's ability to run is completely non-existent. I mean, they're not going to let him. They're not going to do design run. And if he does scramble, they're going to blow the whistle early. Or the defense is going to say they sacked him, and you go look at the film, and you're like, I don't think he escaped that, really. So I'm really interested to see that part of his game and how that helps Auburn's offense. I mean, you got good receivers, you got a pretty good line, and then if things break down, you have a quarterback that will be willing to legit run. Peyton Thorne would scramble; he's mobile, but he wanted to stand in there and go through his progressions, and I think Jackson will too. But he's just not going to be worried about just taking off and running and taking a hit or whatever. And I think that's an element to this whole offense that we don't know yet, but could really, really help when things break down, which we've seen with some offense, some Hugh Freeze stuff. Sometimes it just breaks down and it looks ugly. If you got a quarterback that can run, he can make up for it.
That's a fair point, and especially for an Auburn defense that probably has top 15 upside in college football. I mean, has a lot of guys returning on that side of the ball with a very new look offense, a very rebuilding offense that has talented pieces, obviously, around Jackson Arnold. But that's a certainly fair piece of context to bring up to this conversation. Can you explain in 20 seconds or less play calling duties and how this is going to work?
Oh, boy. In 20 seconds? Hugh Freeze is the primary play caller. Let's not get that twisted. Derek Nix will help with strategy on first down and will certainly have his input on the call on Saturday. Ken Austin will do the same thing on third downs. That's how Saturday will work. And really, Saturday's no different than everybody else. It's a bunch of guys communicating, hey, let's do this, let's do this. But Freeze is the primary play caller. That's the one thing. Freeze kind of says Nix is the play caller. Freeze is the play caller. I don't like the shell game, but I get it. He wants to promote Nix. He wants to sort of elevate him and make it, I get that kind of that deal. What I've said multiple times, and I'm going to say it here, and this is more than 20 seconds. What my issue is during the week.
Yep.
You have a head coach who's the primary play caller, but I'm telling you from last year, he's not in every single offensive meeting. He's not in every single quarterback meeting because he's the head coach. He's in something else. He's in a defensive meeting. But then on Saturday, he's the primary play caller. And to me, that's where the door gets opened a little bit for something to get lost in translation, preparation to Saturday, something not communicated. I know it happened last year. So that's my biggest concern. Who calls plays on Saturday and how that works isn't my concern at all. It's more of, is Freeze going to be in tune with every single thing that was said and talked about during the week, even the meetings he wasn't a part of, so that when he calls plays on Saturday, everybody's in tune. That's kind of the part that, that concerns me a little bit. We'll see how it goes, but that's the part that I'm watching.
Why can't Auburn just have a normal play calling situation? Every year with Gus, it's the Michael Scott vasectomy. It's back and forth. Brian Harsin had 3 different OCs and he was there for less than 2 seasons.
It's been crazy.
This is a third different iteration of Hugh Freeze play calling, or at least the explanation of it. Maybe it's not going to be that different than last year, but why does it just always have to be so weird with Auburn?
You're right. You could go back years. I mean, you could go back to Malzahn when it was Malzahn, then it was Rhett, then it was Chip Lindsey, then it was Malzahn again, and then it was Harsin and Bobo. I mean, you could go back, man. You could go back. You could go back just years and years. And there's been, Jason Campbell. You can go back 20 years when Jason Campbell was here. He had 4 OCs in 4 years. You could name the amount of OC/play callers in the last 20 years for Auburn is probably a different one a year. So, but anyway, Freeze is the play caller. And here's my other point. No matter about all this stuff, if the offense doesn't work, Derek Nix is not going to be blamed. Hugh Freeze is going to be blamed. So you might as well just you might as well own it. I get why he's not, but if it doesn't go well, it's on Freeze anyway.
I projected 6-6 for Auburn.
Ooh.
You told me that's worst case scenario. What's best case scenario for this team?
I want to say 9-3 realistically. Do they have the talent to go 10-2? Yeah, they do. And they got Georgia and Alabama at home, the 2 hardest games. So, is 10-2 off the table? No, it's really not. You just don't want to go there because you haven't seen it in how many years, and you haven't seen the consistency from Hugh Freeze. And I totally get that. I'd be with you on that. But they've got the talent and the ability. They've got enough players at different positions. I think Auburn's top 15-ish players are pretty close to on par with the elite teams in the SEC. If you just said, give me your top 10 to 15, it's when you get to top 35 that they're not quite there yet. But 6-6 kind of, I feel like that would Hugh Freeze would probably survive that. I think.
Would he?
I think it depends. It depends on who the loss is. It depends on what the losses look like. I think he would survive that just because they cannot go through another coaching change, NIL, there'd be a lot of variables there. Do the boosters in November go, man, I'm not giving you any more money for this class. You haven't shown it. You go finish this class out how you can finish. And then does Cohen say, well, if you're not going to give money, we got to make a change. There's just a lot going on. So I think he'd survive since 6-6, but boy, it'd be brutally ugly. But I think 10-2 that's probably best case. I think it's possible. I'm at 8-4, 4-4 is the benchmark for me. That's my floor. Anything below 8-4, or if you go 3-5 in the league, those to me are not a step forward. 8-4, 4-4 is a step forward for me. Anything above that, anything below that, to me is another year where you go, where did we gain no ground as a program? To me, if you go anything below that.
I've been meaning to ask this question to somebody who actually would know the answer better than I would. And I know that he was there there was a booster event in Atlanta, but John Cohen being with Hugh Freeze at SEC Media Days, was that weird?
Oh, I didn't think so. Well, I was there just for Auburn, so I didn't even really pay attention to were there any other ADs there. But there was an event the night before, to be fair. There was a function so we went and talked to Freeze and Cohen the night before. So Cohen was in town at an alumni function, a booster function the night before. And then just kind of walked around, I guess, that day. I'm trying to think I talked to him a little bit off the record. He might have done an interview or two, but I don't know. Were there a lot of other ADs there, or was he the only one?
Trev Alberts was there for A&M, but I was talking about this with our mutual friend Ryan Brown. I was like, the last time I can remember an SEC AD being at media days was Ross Bjork when Texas was about to join the SEC. Other than that, just don't see it. And I'm like just wondering what that dynamic is like and how much Hugh Freeze is John Cohen's ride or die. And that's always such a big topic of conversation at Auburn. But like, where are those two at right now with how much they are aligned? Because obviously like their success or failures are very much synonymous with one another.
It's a fair point. I mean, my guess would be, I've seen John Cohen around at he's after basketball games, a lot of the press conferences, he's in the back of the room listening to Bruce Pearl, and then he walks out with him, and he doesn't need to be there, but he's there kind of for some reason. So I don't know, maybe it's an element of, I just want to be present. Maybe it's an element of I just kind of want to make my guy feel like I'm kind of there with him, supporting him a little bit. Maybe given where the program is, he thought maybe I could talk to some people, or if anybody wants to have me on, I could sort of smooth things over, maybe talk about if NIL off the record with people, or, maybe just thought he could sort of do some work behind the scenes while he's there to kind of squelch negativity about the program kind of deal. I think their relationship's in a good place. I don't sense that they're not aligned right now. I don't. I think that they're pretty in line, and it is a ride or die. I mean, it's his hire. Like, if that doesn't go well, that also, by the way, is the element of naming the national champions, retiring Cam's jersey, getting the Nike deal done. Those are just easy. Putting the other video board up in the end zone and getting rid of that old board that's been there for decades and decades. Like, Cohen's been smart about, hey, let's knock out some home run issues that Auburn fans have been clamoring about that will make us look really good. Like, those things might seem trivial, but it gets you a lot of capital with Auburn fans. So let's say the Freeze thing, whatever. You've got all these other things that you're tacking up and you're storing that I think that plays a part. I think they're good moves on their own, but I also look at a lot of these easy moves he's making, and Auburn fans seem happy with him. The big stuff though is Freeze and NIL. How does that work out, and roster and stuff like that, revenue sharing and making sure all that works. But anyway, I think those are connected a little bit. Like, let's get some good grace going here with all these little 99-1 issues, just in case things don't work out with Hugh Freeze.
Last one for you. I know you got to run. We've been going down the sliding doors of Auburn hires in the 2020s, and what if they had hired Dion, or what if they had hired Kiffin, or blah blah blah. And hindsight's 2020 on this, but the one that I was thinking about today, where would Auburn be right now if it had hired Steve Sarkisian instead of Brian Harsin?
That's a good one. How about Kirby Smart instead of you go all the way back? Kirby Smart wanted the job. I might get my years confused, but you go back to, it might have been Malzahn. It might have been all the way back when they hired Malzahn in 2013. Kirby Smart wanted the job. He talked with Pat Dye. Like that, Kirby Smart was a legit candidate. Kirby Smart, from my understanding, wanted full, complete autonomy and control. And he did not get his answer. It was like, meh, you're not going to get full-on control. Boy, what a mistake that was. Like, Kirby Smart could have been Auburn's head coach over 10 years ago. Now, could he have jumped to Georgia when that opened? Sure. But maybe not. But that's a good one. Sarkisian would have been a good one instead of Harsin. That was a crazy one where Alan Green just kind of went rogue, and the boosters wanted Hugh Freeze then. But it all kind of got squelched. Actually, they wanted Kevin Steele. They were going to elevate Kevin Steele, and Alan Green kind of went rogue. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. You think about stuff like that. You go back over 10 years, and Kirby Smart could have legit been a hire. Sarkisian for sure. And it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Coaching hires I feel like they're I don't know, maybe I don't know if people are getting better at coaching hires or not. I feel like
I don't either.
I mean, do you think like I've watched coaching hires and I'm like, I don't know, maybe. I have no idea if it's going to work out. There's so many variables. I have no clue.
I've gotten to that point. And what brought me to that point was John Cohen's hire at Mississippi State of Joe Moorhead. And I'm like, I'm the biggest Joe Moorhead guy in existence. And then seeing the way that played out for 2 years and seeing how horribly it went, I went from saying it's a home run hire to being by the end like, they're just not aligned and it's not going to work. And I now look at these hires and I'm like, sure. Do they have the pieces in place? Sure. But I won't dog a hire in the same way that I won't say something is can't miss. I think we're just at that place right now.
Yeah. It's hard to judge. Think about when Scott Frost was named at Nebraska.
Yep.
Like, I feel like that was a consensus no-brainer. Everybody was like, this is going to work. There's no way this is not going to work. And it was a complete disaster. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like trying to judge a quarterback in college or in the NFL. It's the stuff you just can't see is what's going to make the difference. You can look at a guy and he's talented or he's a good recruiter or whatever. It's all the variables, man, of like culture and organization behind the scenes. And like, it's all the stuff that you really can't, it's hard to know until you get into it. Like there's a lot of stuff that's hard to determine.
Yeah, like if you had predicted last year, like in some places you could have had, Brock Vandagriff is going to have a better year than Cam Ward. And then you see where those two things go by season's end. It's like one guy's not playing football anymore. One guy was number 1 overall pick who went to New York. It's tough to predict. Really, really tough to predict. And for your sake, hopefully Auburn's not predicting another coach and whether or not it's going to work. But you'll be on top of it if it is. Justin, really, really appreciate the time. Looking forward to reading all your great work on On3.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, so wanted to close with the schedule that we're going to have moving forward. We're doing some slightly different things this season, but basically still the same. So our preview pods, we are going to be recording those on Wednesday, and those will come out Wednesday afternoon. And the goal is to, just like we've been doing the last couple months, so that's not new from that standpoint, but the goal is to be able to have those preview pods for you guys to listen to by the time you're driving home from work on Wednesday. And the thinking is maybe we get cold taked a little bit less instead of having, stuff that comes out on Wednesday night or something like that, which that's what I always hate is being in a spot where it's like, man, we recorded this 15 hours ago and now a pod's just coming out. That's just the way that we used to structure before, but we'll have a little bit less time in between actually recording and getting a pod out.
We got to do that. I don't know if you've listened to like some of like the NPR podcast, but there's somebody come in and say this podcast was recorded at X, Y, and Z. We got to just get some people from the South called in and be like, hey, this pod was recorded at this time. If a quarterback gets hurt in practice, don't blame us. This is a prediction.
Exactly. If something comes out Wednesday night, all right, sorry, we're not going to have. But if it's Wednesday morning and it comes out, then we'll be talking about it. And by the time you go home from work, you'll be able to listen to us talk about it. So we preview every power conference game that an SEC team plays. So we will be doing all of that the next time we talk, Will. The next time we talk, next Wednesday. Isn't that crazy, man? Like, I don't have enough time to do it today, but maybe tomorrow I'm already going to get the doc ready, like just started and just do the skeleton of all the games that we're going to be talking about. We do our fake over-unders and all. We made it. I know. I think I've said 3 or 4 different times on pods recently. We made it. We're through the offseason.
Well, we keep having to go back because stuff keeps happening. It's like, okay, we're in season mode. It's like, okay, an asteroid just hit Nebraska or whatever. We got to figure this out.
Whoa! Of all the 50 states we're gonna pick,
just somewhere. Yeah.
Dang. Not Nebraska. Anywhere else.
Yeah.
The Pacific Ocean. How about that?
There you go.
What? Nothing bad can happen when natural disasters hit the ocean, right? That's fine.
That's
blank space. Yeah. So that's how this is going to play out. And then on Sundays, we'll recap everything that happened on a Saturday. Will is going to be handling all of our Sunday producing post week 1 this season. So Will's going to be doing all things producing on YouTube.
So at me about those, not the other ones. Those aren't my fault. That was the best stuff for the other ones.
No, shout out to our guy, Craig. Craig's been doing really, really great stuff for us and being able to produce the pod. But he does a lot of stuff with our Eagles site, Crossing Broad, once the NFL season starts. So we're going to kind of have like dual producing roles and stuff like that. But he'll still be handling all the YouTube stuff and whatnot during the week as well. So a lot of people have made this thing go. I'm excited for it. Hopefully we're going to have some announcements rolling out in the very near future. Maybe a new sponsor coming in. It's kind of what we're waiting on right now. So we'll keep people aware of that. Please leave us a 5-star review. We love getting those 5-star reviews, especially going into the season. It's a time when I know a lot of people pick up college football podcasts again. Maybe you're not necessarily an off-season listener. Leave us a 5-star review. That'd be really, really awesome. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Saturday Down South on YouTube, where you can watch every single episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SCS Pod, at Sat Down South, at CJ O'Gara, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.